Hi everyone, I'm Angie and welcome to Make It Monday. So this month we are going to work on pebble art. So pebble art is taking stones or small pebbles and turning it into a piece of artwork. If you look up pebble art on the internet or Pinterest, you will find a ton of ideas. I found that the birds were the easiest thing to start with, so that's what we're going to do today. So this is kind of the goal of the piece that we're going to finish. So I'm going to set this aside. And what you're going to need are something to work on. What we're going to work on, this is mat board that they use to make mats for frames. I had a bunch of this in the basement, so this is what we're using. You also could use something like an artist canvas like this and then just paint the background whatever color you want. And then you can pop it into a frame. The other thing we're going to need is stones, of course. These I got just from the dollar store. You can pick up pebbles from outside. You also can find bags like this that come in a big mesh thing. I paid $4.99 for these, so very inexpensive. And then the other thing I'm using, this is actually a bag of crushed shells that I had used in a candle holder. But I found that they make great wings for the birds. For the glue, we are going to use E6000 glue. It comes in a tube like this. It is kind of smelly, so just so you know. The reason we're going to use this and not like a hot glue gun is over time the hot glue gun may not hold your stones onto your artwork. So I found that this was the best thing to use. Having some toothpicks, you're going to need a fine black point Sharpie, a pencil, just some regular craft tacky glue. This is used for the moss. And then just some natural items. Your stones, of course. I'm using some wine corks that I cut in half. And then I also have some grapevine. You could also just use a stick from your backyard. Some moss. We're going to use some Excelsior moss today. You can also find green moss in a bag like that, or you can find moss on sheets like this. So any of those will work just fine for what we're doing today. So we are going to get started. I think I've told you everything we need. So what I like to do is kind of start on a piece of scrap paper just to kind of lay out my design, to kind of audition my stones to see if I like them. So I've kind of laid a few things out here already just to speed things up. But so like I know that I like these stones. I'm going to try and flip this around so that you guys can see what I'm going to do, and I'm going to try and work upside down. So I'm just going to kind of lay things out kind of where I want them. As far as auditioning stones, what I like to do, I like them kind of flat, but that's, you know, this one's a little bit more rounded, so you can do that as well. But what I like to do is like put the stone down and then draw some little feet and a little beak. And just see, you know, do I like that? Yeah, I think he looks okay. And then you can kind of turn him and you get a little bit of an idea of what it's going to look like. And then like my shell pieces, I'll audition. Okay, that works pretty good for a wing. So then you would do that. And then I don't put any dots on for the eyes on here. If you'll notice on this one, I just took a black Sharpie and put dots on, but I didn't do that until after everything was glued down. But that's kind of a way that you can kind of audition your stones to see, do I like this stone? Does it look like a bird? It allows you to kind of twist and turn it. so that you can kind of get an idea. You can draw little feet for your bird. So that's kind of how I go about picking my stones. I had a bunch of different ones here. I found that these were the ones that I liked the best. So I'm kind of going to put that one there, and we'll put this one here, and we'll use kind of this as his wing. You know, turn him a little bit. This guy is going to go up in my tree. So I've got like some grapevine here. I can kind of just lay that in there. This one I think I'll have go down here on top of this. So I just am kind of playing on, and this scrap paper is just cut to the same size that this is, that my mat board is. So that way you kind of can lay things out and get an idea before you start gluing things down. Alright, so I am going to move these off to the side. I am going to flip this around, and we're going to get ready to start gluing. So you can just build on something like this. It doesn't have to go in a frame. If you're going to put it in a frame, I would suggest maybe having the frame on hand when you start to build, but you don't necessarily have to. The one thing you want to keep in mind is that frames come in just a little bit. So when you put your moss and things down, you might want to just build in a little bit from the bottom edge. You know, about a 1/16 to an 1/18 of an 1/16 to an 1/8 inch is about how much you'll need to build in around the edges. All right, so we are going to get started adding our items onto our mat board. So I've got my E6000 glue here and my toothpicks, and this dries fairly quickly, but you do need to hold each item in place. So what I'm going to do is film the whole process and then probably speed it up a little bit. We'll start by gluing the first few things down, and I'll talk you through that. So what I'm going to do is just squeeze a little bit of this on. Like I said, if I put too much on right away, it dries too quickly. And I found that it's easier to put it on your item with a toothpick. So you can see it's kind of stringy there. I don't like to put the glue directly onto the item, especially the stones. It just gets too hard. The stones are too little and you end up with the glue everywhere. Okay, so I'm going to put this down in place, and I'm going to remember that I need to be in a little bit. And we're going to have moss at the bottom. So I'm just going to hold that in place for a few seconds and just keep that, hold it down until it sets up just a little bit. And it is still going to slide around a little bit, so keep that in mind. Okay, next we're going to get our bird positioned. And remember when you're building that you need to leave some space for his feet. So I have learned that before I glue the stone down, I actually want to draw some feet in there, because it's much easier to do it before you glue the stone down. So I'm just going to take a pencil and kind of draw some feet in there, trying to be careful not to bump my cork here. And then I actually like to draw them with the marker. Now you could draw directly with the marker. I'm a little too exacting sometimes, but that's, and you can draw the legs a little bit longer because the stone will cover them up. So we're just going to draw some feet in here. Okay, so now we've got some feet, and I can position my stone on top. And so we're going to pick up a little bit more of the glue and put it on the back of our stone. And then I'm going to put my stone down and just hold it in place. And I'm not going to worry about the beak so much before I put the stone down because, you know, you've got some room to work, but the feet are just a little bit harder. And you can see that it still moves around a little bit. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next piece. And my glue is still fluid. If it gets hard, and you can tell right away when it starts to dry up too much. Okay, so we're going to take, and I want to position that one just a little bit over from this one, but at about the same distance at the bottom. Like I said, we're going to put some moss and stuff at the bottom of these. Okay, so we've got that one in place. And then I think we'll take this guy and I'll glue this part down as well. So I need just a little bit more glue. And I'm going to put that all over the back of my piece of cork here. And this glue does dry shiny, so you want to make sure that you don't have so much glue that it oozes out from beyond your stone. Otherwise you're going to see that. So keep that in mind as you're gluing things. Let's see, we'll put him right about there and push that down in place a little bit. All right. Now I think we're ready to glue this one down. I think we're going to put him this direction. So again, I'm going to draw, and I'm just going to kind of set my stone there. And I'm going to draw some feet with a pencil. The thing about if I put it on with a pencil is that I can always erase it if I decide I really don't like where they are. I'm going to just extend them up a little bit so that they go underneath. Draw a couple little feet on here. And then I'll come in with my marker. Just kind of check to make sure I like that. Yep. All right. My cork is not quite solidified yet. I'm going to hold those down just a little bit more to make sure that that stays in place. So yeah, that's kind of the downfall, and you could do this in stages too. Just a little bit more of this. Okay. And this can get a little stringy, so I just twist my toothpick until it stops stringing. Okay, and I've got kind of a glob of glue right in the middle there. And I'll set that in place where I want that. And I'll just hold it for a little bit. Okay. And it looks like it did squish out on the upper end here, so I'm going to try and pick a little bit of that up. Pick my stone up and move it just a little bit so it covers that. There we go. that covers it. And I still have my legs covered, so. Okay. All right, so I'm going to continue building. I'll film the whole thing, and you can kind of follow along. I'll stop when I get to the moss and the branches so that you know how to do that. But the stones and everything will continue on as this. All right. Okay, as you're gluing the shells on, it is helpful to have a little tweezers. So we're going to add just a little bit of glue, and I'm going to kind of spread it out so it doesn't ooze too much on me. And then I've got tweezers here. I'm going to just kind of hold that and put it in place. And then let it set up. And same for these here. Just a little bit of glue on there. Tweezers. Just so I can kind of hold on to it. And then set it in place right on top of the rock. All right, I'm going to continue building. Okay, so we're to the point I'm ready to glue my branch on. So when you're doing your branch, you have to think about what is actually hitting the paper as far as it touching. So like this branch has a curve in, so this part is not touching, so I don't want to put glue on that particular part of it. So keep that in mind when you're doing your branches. So I found this one and I kind of like that. The other thing I have to remember is that if I'm going to frame this, I need to bring this in a little bit. So I'm going to glue it so that it's about 1/8 of an inch in. And this is going to be my little bird that's going to sit on there. So what I want to do is add a little bit of glue from probably this point to this point, because that's what's actually touching the background. So I'm going to grab a little bit of glue, and here's where you want to be kind of sparing with this, is because it's going to show if it oozes out, and you just need enough to tack it on there. So again, this is where the toothpicks come in handy as far as applying the glue. Okay, so I've got that kind of where I want it, and then now I'm going to hold it. And this is kind of the Jeopardy part, Jeopardy music part. You're just going to hold this in place until it sets up a little bit. The other thing is you could put something on it, so like if I set my glue bottle on there, it's just going to help hold that down. All right, so we're going to let that dry just a little bit, and then I will be back to continue building. Okay, my branch is on there and dry. You can tell it's not moving. I went ahead and glued my little bird that I want to go up there on there. I just positioned him with no feet, just so it looks like he's just nestled right on the curve of that branch. And then I just glued his wing on. So now we're to the point where we can start adding our moss and things on the bottom. So again, I'm using some of the sheep moss for this a little bit. And like I said, you can use regular moss that comes in a bag. We're also going to use some of this Excelsior moss. But I kind of like a little bit of green on there. So what I'm going to do is, since this is on a sheet, I actually can add a little bit of craft glue to the back of this. Ugh, if I can get it to come out of the bottom. Woo, that's a little too much. So, thank goodness for toothpicks. We're just gonna pick some of this up and put it right on our thing. There we go. So I'm just going to kind of spread this out on the back of this sheet moss and get some down here right to the edges. And anything that overhangs too much on the edge, like especially here, we can just trim that off with the scissors. Another beauty of using sheet moss. So I'm just going to kind of position this on the edge. I'm going to kind of scooch it up just a little bit and just kind of push that down. And this particular glue will dry clear. Alright, and I have some pieces ready to kind of go on the other side here as well. So again, it looks like that part's going to hang off. I'm just going to trim this a little bit with my scissors. That looks like it'll work good. So we'll add some glue to the back of this. And again, the good thing about using glue and toothpicks is you can just spread it out and then position it where you want it and add that in. And I'm just going to kind of push that down. And this particular craft glue dries very quickly. So anything like an Aleene's Tacky glue would work just fine. Let's see, I've got another little piece cut to kind of go there. So again, we'll add some glue to the back of this. And again, we'll just position this where I want it, underneath there, and just kind of push that down. I've got a little tiny piece here. I think I'll glue that kind of towards the bottom there. Just put a little bit of, and the kind of the nice thing about this sheet moss is you can cut it into tiny little slivers if you want. Okay, and then for the Excelsior, because this is really kind of stringy, you can take and kind of bunch it up a little bit. And then I'm going to just put some glue on that. Oh, there's my cover. And then what I'll do is just kind of bunch this up a little bit and just put a few dots of glue on the back. And then just squish it down in here where I want it. Well, I think I need a little bit more glue. So I'm just going to add a little bit right to the bottom there. I don't want to overdo it either, so I would definitely work with a toothpick here. I'm going to just kind of hold it in place. And we're going to glue some rocks over the top of some of this, so just kind of let it sit there and let it dry up a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit of this and kind of come off the side there a little bit. And you can cut this stuff with the scissors. You can, I just want some stringy bits coming up the side of here. And the other thing is you can kind of stick it underneath your sheet moss a little bit if you want. So I'm just going to actually dip the tips into there and then just kind of squish them down in there. And I'll probably end up putting a rock right over the top of it, but then it kind of looks like you've got little branches coming up the side of your cork there. All right, let's see. Let's add a little bit of this to this side here. All right. Add a little bit of glue to the back. And we're going to just kind of plop that right in there a little bit. Just kind of let that hang out there. Like I said, we're going to glue a few rocks in place too. That'll kind of help hold a little bit of this Excelsior moss in place. All right, I'm going to add just a little bit underneath this guy here. And let that just stick out a little bit. And I think we'll add a few strands up the side over here. So again, I'm going to just dip the ends a little bit in the glue, and again, I'll have a rock that will kind of cover that up a little bit. But it just adds a few natural elements to the piece. It's kind of fun. And I mean, you could use anything in nature. If you have some dried flowers or something like that you want to add, you certainly can do any of that. It's kind of a free-for-all, whatever you like. More the key thing is just making sure that you get your rocks glued down. Okay, so I've got those in place. Now I've got just some small rocks. And again, we'll need the E6000 glue for this, which I need to put a little bit more out here. The stuff I have is pretty dried out there. So we're just going to add a little bit of that to our, and this is just like a piece of like waxy release type paper. You could use butcher paper, just something that the glue won't soak into. So I think we'll add this one. And I try to kind of find this flat side. So we'll add that kind of right there. And as I push this down and hold it in place, it's actually pushing the Excelsior up a little bit, which is kind of fun. Let's see, maybe this one can go there. Yep, I like that. So again, we'll grab a little bit of glue and add that on there. And let's see, maybe this little dark black one there. That one there, kind of cover up my glue and hold my Excelsior in place. Let's see. I think I want another stone right there underneath that cork. Like I said, you just kind of play around and move things until you get something you like. It kind of tucks in there nicely. Okay, now we need a few on this side here. Let's see, what do I want? I think I'll put this, I don't know, he's kind of big. All right. I think we'll put this one kind of up on the edge there. Trying to do this and not get glue all over myself. And these I can trim if I need to, if I decide they get a little too wild. And I'll put this guy, I think. And sometimes I just like to turn them around until I find a spot I like. my Excelsior out there. Well, we'll glue that down in a minute here with the rock. All right. Glue that one down in place. Let's see. That one's a little too big for there. I think I'm going to take just a little bit more Excelsior and kind of bunch it up underneath that cork there, just to make it not look so, I feel like I kind of have a dead space there. Let's see if this glue is still good here. Yep. So I'm just going to push that down in there. And I'm just going to hold that a little bit until my rocks aren't quite set up yet with the E6000 glue. So actually I think I'm going to just set that little rock there for a minute just to kind of help hold that in place. And I can trim up all that fuzzy stuff later. Okay, so the last things we need to do are to add the beaks to the bird and the eyes. So while this stuff is setting up a little bit, I'm going to just carefully take my pencil, and depending on how you shape the beak, so like this one I put the beak towards the top and it makes him look like he's looking up in the air. So depending on where you put your beak on the bird will kind of gauge the direction that he's kind of looking. So this one I think I want just right here. So again, I'm just going to kind of draw with my pencil. That looks pretty good. Let's see, this one will maybe make it point up just a little bit so it makes it look like he's looking up in the air a little bit. And then I'm just going to come back in with my marker, and very carefully as to not bump everything else. Oh, I gotta get my marker running first here. There we go. So I just draw the lines and then I just fill it in. So I basically trace the lines, if I can see them, and fill that in. Okay, so let's work on these ones over here. Just going to spin this around a little bit so I can, we'll have this one looking up in the air a little bit. Okay, and this one will kind of face like he's looking down at the other birds. All right, so now we'll take our black marker. What? I don't know what it is about these. Sometimes you just need to scribble them on a piece of scratch paper. All right, there's the beak for that one. And I always put the beaks on before I put the eyes on because I feel like I can situate the eye a little bit better if I know where the beak is. Okay, so we got our beak on there. And then now we just need to add the eyes. And this one I just kind of go for it. And I'm just going to draw a tiny little, again, let's get the marker running. A tiny little circle with my black pen. So we got one there. Sorry if my hands are in the way, guys. Okay, let's see this one. We're going to position it right about there. And this one is going to kind of go right on the edge there. All right. So that, whoop, that glue is still drying under there. So that is our pebble art. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, look on Pinterest. There is so many ideas. I have seen ones where they build little families on a branch that they just hung across the bottom. They're super cute. So have fun with the pebble art. We'll see you next month. Have a good day. Bye-bye.